On the ground in Colorado with an early pregame take is Chairman of the Republican National Committee, Reince Priebus. It's good to see you, Reince.
Hey, nice to see you, too.
So what we've learned so far from this season is that the debates can shape this race. How do you think the fact that Ben Carson has stolen the lead will influence tonight?
You know, it's hard to tell. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I think all these candidates have a different strategy, and you've been kind of seeing the pregame happening among all the different candidates, you know, at least preluding a different approach to the debate. Obviously, I think Dr. Carson is saying he's not going to take the bait. I think others are saying they're going to come out aggressively. You know, I think that all the candidates ought to consider Reagan's 11th commandment and conduct themselves in a way that's good for our party and good for our country, and I think they will.
I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot about President Reagan tonight. Let's talk about the Republican Party. Backers of Trump and backers of Carson are not necessarily the same part of the Republican electorate. How split is the party right now?
No, I don't think it's split. I just think that, like we've got two major political parties in this country. So there's two doors people can walk through. And when you've got two doors people can walk through, within that room of each door, you have different types of folks that have different things that are first on their mind and what they look for in a candidate. We've got a lot of candidates, and each one of those candidates, I think, appeals to a different kind of voter, and that's what you're seeing. And I think at the end of the day, when we come together in March or April of next year, we'll have one person that prevails, and then our party will unify, and then we need to go on to the next phase, which is getting to the convention and winning a general election.
But Mr. Priebus, that's going to be a very difficult process, isn't it? Let's say, for example, that Mr. Trump wins through. Let's say, just as the sake of argument, are you going to be able to unite the rest of the GOP around him? The rest of the people on Capitol Hill? I mean, he is not clearly born and bred party. He's a candidate which explicitly expresses something different that you've kind of brought into the fold, surely.
Well, I mean, sure, he and others might express something differently, but at the end of the day, they're going to be running against Hillary Clinton. We're going to be running against Hillary Clinton. I think Hillary Clinton is a unifying figure that we would be running against in the general election. Obviously, it's about getting our country back on track, getting our debt trajectory under control, all the things that you all talk about every morning. But ultimately, this is going to be a race between the Republicans and the Democrats, and whoever our nominee is, I can assure you that we will unify behind that person to make sure that we've got a party and a candidate that's ready for prime time.
You know, we talk a lot about the polls. The candidates talk about the polls. The truth is the polls aren't really a good, reliable indicator of which candidate is going to actually run for president. At this time in 2008, it was Rudy Giuliani who was leading the polls. It was Herman Cain in 2012. How much stock, how much credibility are you giving to the polls right now?
Well, I mean, I think that when you've got 14 candidates and you got to figure out a way to get everyone on the debate stage, we're doing, and CNBC and other entities are doing the best they can in trying to have some line that draws a distinction and a qualifying factor for getting on these debate stages. So I think that polls go up and down. I do agree that it's very early. I do agree that just because people might be up today doesn't mean they're going to be up tomorrow. So they do fluctuate, but that's why each debate allows for, if it has to be, a different group of people on the main debate stage depending on how those polls change. And I think you might see some of that as we get closer to Iowa.
And what view are you taking of two watershed moments now for your own party in the House? On the one hand, the fact that we could get a budget deal passed today, and then presumably Paul Ryan elected as leader tomorrow. I mean, Ryan has been very careful, whilst he supports the deal, to bitterly criticize the process and the way in which it was handled, arguably behind closed doors with the Obama administration. A sop to the conservatives who are themselves hopping mad, many of them, at the position in which they find themselves. How can Paul Ryan unite them by Friday?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know if you can unite every single person in the House by Friday, but, you know, far be it from me to talk about House process. But one thing I know about Paul Ryan is that he's someone that wants to build and unify the party. He wants to include people in the process. He's not somebody that wants to punish anyone. He's not someone like that. He wants everyone to have a voice. But what Paul wants to do, I believe, is have a big vision for the House and have big things that we want to accomplish for the House, so that when you get into these tactical arguments, the tactical arguments don't become Armageddon, because everyone understands that there's actually some things that are really big out there that we need to do together as a party. I think that's what Paul Ryan brings to the table, and I think that's why everyone's so excited about him being the Speaker of the House.
Chairman Priebus, as you mentioned, of course, 14 candidates still for the Republican nomination. 10 will be on the stage in the main debate. I mean, how many months need to go by before this field gets significantly winnowed down?
Well, I mean, you saw that CNBC, and I thought very smartly, put in a floor for the first time in the debates. It's only the third debate, but put in a floor saying, if you're not at 3%, then you can't be on the main stage. And it's very similar to what you all did 4 years ago. And I think as we get closer to Iowa and the March 1 deadline, you'll probably see potentially that floor creep up as we go. But I think it's important now that it's early that we include as many people as we possibly can, and I think that CNBC did a nice job of starting that process.
Well, thank you for the compliment to our network. Reince, good to have you on. It's going to be very exciting to watch tonight. That is the chairman of the Republican Committee, Reince Priebus. And you'll hear more from Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and all the other GOP candidates tonight during the CNBC debate.